KFR Talk.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point KFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Talking here in this first hour about the Supreme Court's ruling this morning. Tremendous victory for the sanctity of life and for religious liberty. And you know that because of the justices that were opposed to it. I believe this was John Roberts. It was kind of a make-up vote on his part. The fact that he did not write this ruling means that I think he knows he blew it. He's admitting he blew it on the original Obamacare. And it would be embarrassing for him now to write an opinion that overturns a major part of Obamacare after he was the one that upheld it just 2 summers ago. So I think John Roberts basically admitting to all of us, hey, look, I blew it, and I'm trying to make amends. Let's go back to Terry, New Albany, Mississippi. Terry, we were talking before the break about this runoff election in Mississippi. Still out there percolating. I've got some information to bring you about the fact the McDaniel campaign is discovering that there are more and more hinky votes that are out there. Even the chairman of the Democratic Party saying he thinks there's more than 6,700 hinky votes out there, and we ought to have a new runoff election. So we'll bring you some of the details on that. But anyway, Terry, you're a pastor. You were talking about the kind of makeup of the spiritually of the state of Mississippi. Finish your thought.
Yes. I believe that what I've experienced in 6 different pastors is, and not all people are the same, and not all churches are the same, and I make no judgments on no man's heart, but from what my personal experiences are, there's about 3 different mindsets here in Mississippi. One is, I believe you have a genuine core of born-again believers who they know the Lord and they want to live and do the right thing. And I believe you've got about a third of the population that's sort of the mindset of might makes right. And to me, that's like the good old boy network. That's whatever we need to do to get the election, we'll get it no matter what. You know, might makes right, power's the thing. And then you have about a third of the people that are persuadable. They're sort of like, we want to do the right thing, but we really don't know what is the right thing. And so it just depends on, because they have no real conviction standards themselves, they're easily persuadable. And I'm saying that McDaniels needs to follow through with this, because we need to see to it that there is a price paid for this type of going on here in Mississippi, where might makes right and power is a thing that counts. And as long as you get control, you know, they want to say, well, just be a good boy now, your time will come, and don't make no waves, and we'll still got future for you, Chris McDaniels. But if you make waves, if you stand up against us, then we'll just cut off you from now on. And that's where we get in a rut, and we never go anywhere, because we just become subservient to the ideal that might makes right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to just hear your thoughts on this and see what your thoughts on it. And I appreciate you.
All right, Terry. All right, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for those observations. You know, Terry's kind of assessment as a longtime Mississippi resident, and as a pastor, he's in contact and communication with just a lot of different people in Mississippi, a lot of different walks of life. So got a pretty good finger on the pulse, and he says maybe a third of the state is comprised of sincerely devoted followers of Jesus Christ. You got a third that aren't. I mean, they're into the might makes right. They're into imposing their whatever on other people, and then you have a third that are just sort of, they're in kind of the middle there somewhere, where they can be convinced to go with those that are supporting transcendent values, or they can be sucked into the camp that thinks might makes right. And that's kind of the tug-of-war that we have going on right now between McDaniel and Cochran in this primary. Now, I'm looking at a piece by Neil Monroe. Now, Neil Monroe is a good political writer. He is a first-rate writer. And I got to find that particular, maybe that's in my column. I've got a column up at our website, rightlyconcerned.com. The title of my column is That Giant Sucking Sound, Conservatives Fleeing the GOP's Big Tent. Now, I've got a story in Breitbart here. And according to Breitbart, they're talking to Claude McInnes. They talked to Claude McInnes, who was the Hinds County Democratic Party election coordinator. That's where most of the skullduggery happened. Cochran picked up 11,000 votes in Hinds County. That's where the biggest turnout was in the African-American liberal Democratic community. Hinds County won this race for Senator Thad Cochran. And the Hinds County Democratic Party election coordinator, this is Claude McInnes. He's going to know more than anybody else about the ins and outs of the election process in Hinds County. He says he believes there was an entire truckload of fraudulent Democratic votes cast in his county alone. This is the Hinds County Democratic Party election coordinator, Claude McInnes. He says he thinks there were at least 3,000 fraudulent votes, bogus votes that were cast in Hinds County. And remember, if a Democrat voted in the Democratic primary on June 3, they're not eligible. It's illegal for them to vote in the Republican primary on June 24. Well, how many Democrats knew that? I'm not saying that these Democrats went to the polls and intentionally broke the law. I'm saying that they might not have known any better. All they knew is that somebody was walking around handing out big wads of cash, urging them to get on the church van to drive them to the polling place so they could vote for Thad Cochran. So they obediently get on the van and they get driven down to the polling place. They show up and they go in there and they vote for Senator Cochran. Now, they probably don't even know that it's illegal for them to vote. Didn't even know that it was illegal. So I'm not blaming the Democrats. They were just doing what they were told. They were just doing what they were instructed to do. But we know from what others have said that when they got to these polling places, a lot of them did not have the poll books from June 3rd. Now, I don't know if that had to do with the fact that this was a Republican runoff. So the poll books that were there at the polling stations were Republican polling books. The Democrats had the polling books from June 3rd, but a lot of them were not available to these poll workers, so they couldn't check and see if these individuals that are showing up on the 24th had also voted on the 3rd. They had no way to check, so you can't even fault the poll workers on this. They're obviously going to, they're going to tilt toward letting people vote. They want to protect the right of people to vote, so they're going to let them vote even if they're not absolutely sure they're even eligible to do it. So anyway, the chairman of the election coordinator for Hinds County, the Democratic Party election coordinator, Hinds County, says at least 3,000 hinky votes in Hinds County alone. And then you've got the chairman of the Democratic Party, Ricky Cole. We had him on here last Wednesday, and he's even agreeing that he thinks this election was stolen from Chris McDaniel. He told Breitbart, quote, "It is very conceivable that the McDaniel camp, quote, will find a number of irregularities that will reach 6,700 or greater. And that would call for a new election." Remember, the margin of victory is about 6,700 votes. So you get 6,700 votes about which there is a legitimate question. Then Cole says, look, he's a Democrat. He's the chairman of the Democratic Party. That's enough to call for a new election. Cole says this is the Democrat speaking. You don't even have to prove who they voted for. You just have to prove that there were that many ineligible ballots. That puts the intent of the voting public in doubt, and that's the path by which a court could order a new election. So I'm telling you, when you've got Democrats, the election coordinator for Hinds County, who's a Democrat, the Democratic election coordinator, and you have the chairman of the Mississippi Democratic Party, and both of them are saying, look, this election is hinky. There were a lot of fraudulent ballots, or a lot of ballots that were cast in this rate that should not have been cast. The chairman of the Democratic Party in Mississippi I think there's enough to call for a new election. Then I think you have got to take that seriously. And I think one of the things that means for Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, he had better not certify this thing before all of this has been resolved. There's a lot of pressure on him to try to certify this thing today. I think that'd be a huge mistake. You've got to let this process play out and make sure that these issues of irregularity, all of them, are resolved. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to John, Front Risen, Arkansas. Welcome, John. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, I really appreciate your show.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that all this stuff goes to show you, and God's people need to wake up and understand that there are people that are willing to lie to you to get their way. And when it comes to abortion, election, or global warming, and I wanted to just add to what you were saying on global warming, I want people to understand that it's already been proven that the sun is our major player when it comes to our environment, to our climate. The best meteorologists will tell you that the sun is what they look at to get their understanding of what the weather patterns are going to be. Then the second big player is the biomass on the earth. that which is rotting, that which is dying and decaying as far as grass, leaves, plants. And then the third is animals. And we as humans and what we do with our economics, that's way down the list when it comes to affecting our climate. And I just wanted to add to you on what you said. I really appreciate your show.
All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And John's exactly right. I'm looking at a piece here. Harold Ambler, the website, is talking about the weather. And he has a chart here showing that there is more Antarctic sea ice now than there ever has been. This is your catastrophic global warming alert for the day. Antarctica sets new record for sea ice. The sea ice surrounding Antarctica has been steadily increasing throughout the period of satellite measurement that began in 1979 and has hit a new all-time record high for coverage, beating the record that was set back on December 20th of 2007. So Antarctic sea ice at an all-time high. Let's grab a quick call from Marty in Lawton, Louisiana. Marty, welcome. Got about 45 seconds. Make it fast. I want to hear from you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, I had Matthew 5 open today, and it says, you have heard that it was said to you that to people long ago, do not murder. And I wanted to parallel it with my experience with my spouse. And
Marty,
before we were born again.
Hang on, Marty. Would it be possible for you to hang on over the news? I hate to ask you to wait because it's 5 minutes. Can you hang on?
You bet. I'll try it.
Okay, why don't you hang on and we'll take your call. I want to be sure we get everything you have to say. We'll take your call coming right out of the news in just 5 minutes. Well, that's it for the first hour on Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program Focal Point Network AFR Talk. We'll be right back after the news. Don't go anywhere.